Good morning, Veronica. Good afternoon, evening, Alan.
Good
Today's
evening.
Friday again. It's
Hi.
been another bullish week in the market for most asset classes. We're going to talk about the rest of February, but before we get there, let's look at some of the events I think that really kind of grabbed some headlines this week, besides the impeachment of Trump and some of the other political things. Ron, you want to talk about Bitcoin?
Yeah, I'll start with what was happening with Bitcoin. We see Bitcoin jumping from $30,000 at the end of January to all-time high last week to $48,000. And we saw kind of for months there has been news about mainstream businesses getting involved into cryptocurrencies, like, of course, Tesla bought 1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Then companies like MasterCard and Visa also on Wednesday said that they will let merchants accept some cryptocurrencies. On Thursday, the oldest bank in the United States, BNY Mellon, also said it will hold and transfer cryptocurrencies for customers. Twitter and Square also considering Bitcoin investing. So all this news kind of hyped up the price around it. And of course, the Reddit crowd also jumping on that wagon. But again, why is this happening now? Especially that cryptocurrencies are still not that useful outside of a very few cases, such as cross-border transactions. Probably there are several reasons for that. Of course, there are people's fascination about cryptocurrencies, like Elon Musk, Tesla's CEO, his fascination about cryptocurrencies, and he tweeted that. The second reason, companies, like I mentioned, BNY Mellon Bank, they're getting into Bitcoin because of the customer demand. And the third reason, there is more increasing government acceptance of this trend, but I would say it's not even acceptance, it's more kind of lazy approach to regulating this digital asset, though it's been associated, of course, cryptocurrencies associated with the illegal activities. So analytics thinks like without at least some approval of regulators, crypto couldn't have landed on the balance sheets for so many companies. But what's the most interesting, I think, that Visa and MasterCard are basically the intermediaries that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies want to take out of these transactions. They're the ones who are interested in this technology. They're the ones who also getting into cryptocurrency to also perform the role of middleman still in the cryptocurrency. So we see that this old financial companies actually can be the biggest beneficiaries of the crypto revolution. And it might not be easy for them to dominate this crypto world. But still, this is kind of interesting tendency and trend that clients still want global, neutral, trusted brand to help them to buy cryptocurrencies, to use Bitcoin. And they use, again, Visa, MasterCard, and banks to do that. They use middlemen. The other thing, if the clients want to get involved in cryptocurrencies and be less volatile, then one of the ETFs that actually invest in public companies involved in the technology behind the Bitcoin is BLOK, is BLOK. And as we can see, that even beginning of this new, starting this year, it already made 100%. So this is, again, volatile, but
can you explain just more about BLOK itself, Veronica? What exactly is BLOK?
BLOK is an ETF which is called Amplifying transformational data sharing. And this is the ETF that invests in public companies that invest in technology behind Bitcoin, that invest in blockchain technology.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that also can and includes Visa, it can include banks, include like software and companies that we mentioned that use blockchain technology, like even Tree.
So it's a kind of an easier way for an investor maybe to play the cryptocurrency trend. And
yeah, that's
here's
much
actually
easier
what it
than
holds.
investing directly.
It holds a company called MicroStrategy, Galaxy Digital Holdings, Marathon Patent Group, Riot Blockchain, Silvergate, which you mentioned before, Square, PayPal, even Overstock.com, so Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, NVIDIA, Alibaba, Taiwan Semiconductor, Advanced Micro Devices, IBM, Microsoft, Baidu. So it's not a pure play on Bitcoin, but it's a thing associated with the Bitcoin technologies. Although Silvergate,
blockchain technology,
blockchain technologies. Although these top holdings are pretty much the leaders in the blockchain area. We've mentioned Silvergate before. We talked about it when it was going to break out here, and we said like probably a good idea to get long here.
But even things and Square, but once you get down into the Microsoft, IBMs, okay, Nvidias, but these are relatively small positions compared to, I think it was 8% was the biggest position.
This is the 8 MicroStrategy with an 8%. This is the stock. So you can see these things have taken on a whole
they've tracked
life
Bitcoin
of their own, right?
Yeah, they basically tracked Bitcoin. I mean, they all show very similar graphs. I was speaking to fund managers last week, and they said that one of the reasons they don't buy Bitcoin right now is it's too small. It's trading, at less than Apple, for example. So it's a very small play generally, but as it gets a bigger position, then they will jump on it. So it's kind of a rolling stone. Once that stone becomes big enough, a lot of people are going to jump on it.
Right. One of our favorite brokers, actually, they're going to start trading. And I think you can actually buy Bitcoin and Ethereum on this broker now. It's the first broker to actually allow it. They teamed up with a company called Zero Hash, which is a leader in digital trade settlement. So it's coming. I mean, which might stabilize the market a little bit and might put some pressure on it from both sides of the trade. I mean, Bitcoin's a one-way trade. There's no way to say I'm going to get short this thing. Let's talk a little bit about marijuana stocks. We see all these parabolic moves. The Reddit crowd got a hold of the cannabis stocks this week and really blew them out of proportion. And I just want to show the 5-day chart on, companies like TLRY that went from 25 on Monday morning to 75 on Wednesday afternoon. So in 3 days, you triple your money.
Yeah, 100% in a day, basically.
It just really kind of crazy moves. And then everybody's complaining about how it all fell off. And you're like, well, what did you expect? And we mentioned that in our Telegram channel, that there's a massive sell-off now. And
I mean, if you look at Monday morning to Friday afternoon, you'd be quite happy with that kind of return. It's just, that's an insane graph for 1 week.
Right. And then Aurora Cannabis is kind of interesting because it was one of the first companies to come out with actual earnings. We wrote about all the earnings here, and it's interesting. They're selling 15,000 kilograms of cannabis, right? I think that's for the quarter, at a price of $4 Canadian dollars versus a year ago, $4.69. So prices are falling on this stuff, and volumes are going way up, but they're still coming up with losses. I mean, the companies are loss producing. And this is should be, in my opinion, this isn't new technology. This is, you have a market, you sell, you should make money on it. And actually, they're not making any money. So the fundamentals behind this don't make a lot of sense. It's a Reddit phenomenon. All these stocks were up, and
there is a short selling angle at play, definitely, with marijuana stocks as well, because some of the marijuana stocks have 48% short interest.
I mean, if you look further out, then last year was appalling. Last 2 years really have been a downward trend. If you go that far out.
This is the 2018 was a disaster.
And to be honest, it's slowly recovered from, let's say, from September, October last year when it looked like Biden was going to win. And Biden, of course, is more lax on the regulatory aspects of getting marijuana into federal levels, but state by state. And that was the main reason for it rising without this week's interference, if you like, from the Reddit crowd. So. But yeah, and maybe it's just, people are, once you legalize something, you take a lot of the attraction away from it.
Yeah, I mean, some of these stocks, this Village Farms or whatever, look at this, $2 it was back in March.
Yeah.
Now it's 16. Even at the beginning of this year, it was at 10. It's up 60% in 6 weeks. So these are highly speculative Reddit Wall Street bets kind of trades. I think what's interesting is we should introduce this term in our discussion. I mean, it's kind of, everyone talks about it. It's called the meme traders. They're not called Reddit traders or Wall Street. They're called meme traders. So they don't even put it. It's like, my kids communicate with other kids. These traders communicate not by saying, oh, let's all buy this stock. They put a meme out. And or tweet some kind of cryptic thing, and everybody who's involved catches on it, and you can't really. And that makes it hard for regulators too. It's like, well, how did they? No one actually said go buy this. They just put a meme of Snoop Dogg, or somebody. They
just bullied the stock.
They bullied the stock, and so it's quite interesting how it's going to play out with regulators that based on this meme. You incited violence at our Capitol based on this meme. But
it's just a picture of Bob Marley. What do you mean it was
exactly. You dictated a trend here in the stock. No, I didn't. I just put pictures of Snoop Dogg and Bob Marley. So it's quite an interesting phenomenon, and it's really these young kids are just so into this kind of stuff, figuring out how to skirt the regulations.
Dangerously so in some cases.
Yeah, using pictures.
Well, there was a case last week where. The parents of an American child, 17-year-old American boy who killed himself, a Robinhood trader, and his parents are suing. He was getting sued.
I read about it because it was interesting. The kid committed suicide because he thought he had a debt of some huge amount.
$700,000.
And he didn't. He didn't have this debt.
I looked at it. I looked at the headline and I thought, well, they've no chance of winning that. But actually, they might have a chance because that really was a mistake. Because they rectified it the day that he killed himself. They sent him another message saying, we solved those trades. You don't owe that anymore. What a mistake to make. That's terrible.
No, and this is the problem. Robinhood's going to come under criticism for this, and they need to be bolstered up.
I don't know how it can survive, to be honest, because it's made so many gaffes and encouraged so many illegal actions. But
Yeah. That's the meme trading platform, right? So,
right. Yeah.
Let's make a point just about marijuana and marijuana stocks that they actually still are up for the week with all this craziness, right?
If you
look at Monday morning, this was trading at 23 and it's at 25 today. So that's not a bad return for
but
1 week.
That's a kind of consistent return because it's done. It's been up like 5% per month. For the last few months, it's not. It's a slow, steady. You just take that graph away, cut from Monday to Friday, and you have a graph that basically mirrors the last 5 months.
Yeah.
It's not not exactly, but it's pretty accurate because we've been watching it. We've got clients invested in it, so that's the risk you take. You just trade.
I think the time span on this Reddit stuff is much shorter now. This is like 1 or 2 days, and it probably will get down to intraday. Because people will just be so wary of the play. They'll see the play and they'll want out of that play before, it's not a GameStop where it goes up for 2 weeks. It's it's already shortened down to 1 week, few days. Now it's 3 days on this stuff. So I think you're gonna see this stuff cut back because you're gonna see people who want to make. The Reddit crowd can also make short positions and take short positions on this, and they become almost a victim of their own success, right? Like we know it's going to go up. Well, okay, I'll just short it when it goes up. And so you do have a two-sided market again there. Again, I just look at this, we mentioned this last week, that this is all kind of part of the frothiness of the market that you see when all these retail traders get involved and volumes go up and retail traders, options volumes are going through the roof, and we can pound that and show graphs. But I think is enough just to verbally say that and move on to other things. Alan, let's talk about the UK, which is different, the exact opposite of the marijuana and the Reddit stock.
The sublime to the ridiculous, or the ridiculous to the sublime. I don't know which way around it is. Probably, probably the first one.
So you wanted to bring up this article in the Financial Times.
Yeah, well, obviously, I follow it quite closely. It's first of all, it's important to say many managers are very underweight the UK right now, or have been up until quite recently. And that was mainly because of Brexit. Obviously, pandemic has caused a lot of people to be, I would say, more conservative. So very underweight a lot. It's been pretty dull. It's underperformed horribly. It's actually, I think, it's trading. The yield is above 4%. I think we'll come on to that in a second. What is interesting is that compared to the US, it's much more value oriented. And we've gone over many times about value versus growth stocks. So if you think we're coming to the point of good value, or value stocks are the place you want to be, then this is kind of a good way to play it. There's a number of good reasons to look at seriously the FTSE, and particularly the FTSE 100. First of all, it's got a yield of about 4%, and if you look at that, that graph there, Chris, where you've actually got it now, if you trace the top of that graph on the right hand side and go right back to the left, the only times it's above that line are wartime. So 1939, 40, and then before that 19 teens, when it was the First World War. So it's very unusual to have basically a bigger dividend yield on the FTSE than you would get in gilts, basically. It's very well priced, especially if you look at the US. And okay, you can argue that the US is overvalued, but notwithstanding that, the FTSE 100 is 14 times forward profits, whereas the S&P 500 is 23 times. So it's basically a 1/3. It's 67% of the S&P valuations. And actually, if you look at certain, and one of the reasons again to look at this is value stocks, but one or two areas in particular which have had a good start to the year, which is oil and mining type stocks. So obviously oil is up, I think, almost 20% on the year, 18% on the year. There's quite a number of oil and oil stocks in the FTSE 100 and mining stocks too. And if you look at UK oil and gas, for example, that's 12.6 times earnings compared to the US oil and gas. So it's the same sector, and it should be very similar results. But the US oil and gas is 23 times, and the UK is only 12.6. It's almost double the valuations. So either you can say the UK is undervalued or the US is overvalued. Probably it's a bit of both, but there's certainly room for growth in the UK.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up the chart that we watched of the ETF, and you can just say, like, it did break out. We talked about that breakout after the elections, and it's been on a kind of uptrend. Got a little bit of a setback, but it's recovering now quite nicely. It actually looks, just in technical terms, like a good buy here. So this is an interesting ETF. I wanted to move on with one of the indexes we usually look at is Brazil. So I'm going to bring up EWZ, and really going sideways here. And I think that's kind of we mentioned before that there's an interest emerging market ETFs, mainly because of China, but also because of India are starting to outperform other indexes, right? Other country indexes. So emerging markets are coming back, and Latin America is really leading that, but it's getting to a point where it just can't make any traction. And I think that's something we have to watch. Where can it get above this $38? This ETF get above this $38? Because every time it gets up there, it seems to sputter around or fall back, and really not clear here if we can get back above 40 for sure anytime soon. So we're really watching that.
Consider the oil price has done so well from the beginning of this year. That's because Brazil is usually, it's interesting. A lot of people don't think of this. They think oil, in particular, that's a Russia play.
Yeah, Russia also came up, fell back immediately at the beginning of December. There was news out of geopolitical reasons, yeah, and then now it came down again in January, and It looks strong here with the oil up, and it's up good today, but you wonder if it can get out of this sideways kind of pattern we saw here. So a little bit of watching the major emerging markets. It's still not where I think
What's EEM doing?
I was just going to compare it to what's going on in the United States, where we kind of get this kind of tapering off here in the last 3 or 4 days with the small caps, but really these things are still on a good run, and really positioned well here. JKH is up again today, actually. So we see that. I wanted to zoom in real quick on IWM. The last week, let's just talk about them. We had 2 major sell-offs on the opens, both on Wednesday and on Thursday. And now the small cap index is making lower highs. And so we have to watch if we get another bigger sell-off. With the SPX, we can see kind of this range. Every time we get up here around 39.25, it's a clear sign that, look, this isn't going to get to 4,000 anytime soon, and people begin to sell. And so we saw this on Wednesday, we saw it Thursday, we're seeing it again today where there's a drift off, although I don't think we'll get a big sell-off. It's Friday going into a 3-day weekend, so probably a quiet day in the market. But we have to worry about, as we get into the second part of February, some weakness comes in usually, and we have a market that simply cannot get above this 39.25 level for any more than like 15 minutes or 10 minutes. So we worry about if we're going to see a pullback in the second half of February. If that's the case, we look at what the Stock Traders Almanac brings up, and they say, look, the rally's rolling on, just buy on the dips. And they expect a pullback. Their kind of indicators are rolling over. You can see some of them rolling over here. The market might roll over a little bit, but they're using this as an opportunity, maybe in the end of February or early March, to possibly get back into the market. So we'll be watching for that, and I'll be posting some of this stuff on our blog. One of the last things I wanted to bring up was just in general how bullish the market actually is. This is the weekly from the option strategies, and I just highlighted some of the stuff that's, you haven't seen these levels of put call ratios since February 1999. Quite overbought. Market breadth has been strong this month. Cumulative breadth has been very strong. You can see the stocks only cumulative advanced decline line made new all-time highs for 4 consecutive days through February 9th. New highs continue to dominate new lows. Volatility remains bullish. We had a VIX spike peak or a buy signal from the VIX on February 28th, and it's still in effect. It lasts usually 21 trading days. So we're headed into that maybe at the end of next week where that'll run its course. And just in general, the evidence is still bullish at this time, and the SPX chart is trending higher. So although it's trending higher, it has come into this level of resistance. The expectation that everybody should have right now that we can get a pullback probably, if not next week, the week after. And that would be a good time to look at potentially some setups. And so we'll be doing that. And until then, everybody keep your trades on a short leash and enjoy this craziness we see with the Bitcoin, Reddit, marijuana stocks. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week on Friday. Thank you very much.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Bye-bye.